cool. So what kind of occupancy rates are we looking at with Pad Split? Like, do you have those kind of metrics where to get to 80% occupied, it only takes us 10 days or, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and that's part of what I walk through when I talk. So like my role at Padsplit is I not only manage the Southern California market for Padsplit, which means I do stuff in person, I do events, webinars, these types of things. But I help investors onboard their properties. That's kind of my other that's what I spend probably 70% of my day doing. And I onboard them not only in Southern California but across the country, right? So I'm helping host in Atlanta, in Charlotte, in Dallas, in San
Mm.
Antonio, right? Wherever they have properties or wherever they're located. And that's part of what I do is our initial consult. I sit down with someone, I kind of show them what occupancy numbers are in that market, in that zip code, because we have a data tool where you can see a map of the United States and you can click into all of our markets that we're in, and you can click down to if we have listings in a zip code, it'll show you all the stats for that zip code. So it'll show you
Mm.
like, okay, in this zip code in Atlanta with 400 rooms in this zip code, we're at 97% occupancy, right? So it kind of gives you an
Wow.
idea, especially if you're looking to acquire something potentially. It can give you some markets to shoot for, essentially. But then there's also like if you have a property, you can kind of it'll help you like price out your property, stuff like that. So now as far as like what we're shooting for on a market level, like sometimes I tell people like, oh yeah, we're right around 85% occupancy, right? And they go, well, that's not 100%. I want to be at 100%, right? And I tell them, I say, well, as a marketplace, we want to be in a place where if we're advertising, I mean, we spend I think $1.5 million a month on advertising across our active listings. And if we're going to spend all that money, it doesn't make sense if we're at 99% occupancy because we're advertising for 100 rooms across the country.
Right. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we
Hmm.
do is we try to maintain that balance, but it doesn't mean that we're not trying to get every host that we're working with to 100% occupancy. What it
Hmm.
means is that like if occupancy dips too low, we start pumping up the advertising dollars. If occupancy gets too high, they get after us and they're like, hey, like who do you know that can bring on rooms in these areas? Portland, for instance, just hit 100% occupancy. It's a newer market for us, so I think we only had like 45 rooms there. It hit 100% occupancy, so they reach out to us as market managers, host advisors to say like, hey, who's almost there in Portland because we're spending all this advertising money and there's nothing available, right?
Hmm.
Philadelphia, Richmond, both kind of had issues like that within the last couple of weeks. And it's not a bad thing necessarily,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's just
Hmm.
that they were at like 98% occupancy, 99% occupancy. And in some of those
Mm.
markets, that means that there might only be 7 rooms available for a whole city. Right. And
Right.
so that's where we try to bring on more supply. So that's how we kind of balance that 85% across the network is we either add supply or we spend more on marketing.
Wow. Okay. So that market research tool that you were talking about with the map, that is awesome. Do you have to have a listing on PadSplit to be able to use that tool?
No, so that's where I'm going to provide you, Katrina, with a link where you can set up your own host account for anybody who's watching, and you have free. Once you set up an account, you have free access to a lot of the tools and resources that we provide. That's the same account you would use to list a property, but that's a common misconception. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people will tell me they're like, well, I didn't set up a host account because I don't have a property yet. And I'm like, well, then you're missing out on a bunch of tools and awesome stuff that
Right.
will help you find that property. So I usually recommend anybody I talk to set up a host account so that way they can, have access to not only our map tool, but we have a projected income calculator where you can plug in any address in the United States. You adjust how many rooms it is, you can change amenities, and it'll give you an estimated like gross revenue, right? Because we don't know your
Whoa.
expenses. But it's
Hmm.
pretty amazing. So there's definitely a lot of helpful tools on there. So I always recommend, click the link in the description
Yeah,
and get set up a
definitely.
host account for sure.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. So I imagine that the type of property that would do well on Pad Split would be like a huge property with a lot of bathrooms. What kind of properties do well on Pad Split? Does it need to be like minimum 4 bedrooms with 3 bath, or what does that look like?